Hey everybody, I'm so excited because finally spring is here. It's been here for a while, but the soil has really warmed up and I'm starting my spring season crops, which I'm going to be planting in my recycled tires. And you can see them outside there. I've got them all lined up and I'm actually adding some more. I love recycled tires. If you are going off-grid and you're thinking about starting a homestead and you have problems with your soil, recycled tires are really great because they're free and they're so easy to manipulate wherever you are on your piece of property. You can line them up like I did. You can put them in circles. Whatever. They're really great containers. So consider, if you're doing above the ground raised beds, consider tires. The other thing, I wanted to say too, if you're not off grid right now and you're thinking about getting into some gardening and you don't want to tear up your lawn to make a garden, think about the recycled tires. Very easy to use. Okay, so I've got all my seeds soaking right now. 10 minutes is what you want to pre-soak your seeds before you get them out in the soil. It just helps with the germination. So I'm going to be planting onion chives today, 2 different varieties of kale. I love kale, and some Bloomsdale long-standing spinach, and obviously we have to have a little bit of red ruby Swiss chard in there. All right, so let's go outside and I'll show you the rest of the gardening process. So here's the man. Yeah, that sounds good. Here's the man with the compost. One of the great things about having a tractor off-grid is, besides plowing, you've seen our video plowing the driveway, now we're hauling the compost. So just so you guys get an idea of what we do with the tires, we actually cut them with a knife, and my husband does take the snips, and we take the sidewalls off. Now I've got 2 different tires here. I have used the tires like this with the sidewalls on both sides cut, and I've also used the recycled tires with only one sidewall cut. My plants that are a little bit more shallow, I don't mind having the sidewall on the bottom left in. That's okay, but this ridge kind of gets to be kind of a pain in the butt. So I actually prefer taking that top sidewall off and then taking that hump out and leaving a nice circle like that. They come in all shapes and sizes. Here's just a little one. I cut out both of it. And I use these like for plants, flower plants. I'll fill them up with dirt and stick a couple flowers in there. The Swiss chives, actually, I could even plant the Swiss chives in there and do a little container right here. But you can see the tires come in all shapes and sizes, and you just cut those sidewalls out, and they really make good containers. Now I'm lining them all up here, then you start filling them up with your dirt. I do a mixture of our own compost, and this is the stuff that my husband just brought up from down below, and this was from our own human manure. Looks like some really great rich stuff. So I'm coming over here, I'm getting all my tire beds ready. And this is where all my Swiss chard and my kale and all that stuff is going to be going. The first thing I want to do with my recycled tire beds is add the fertilizer to each of the beds. Even though I'm using my own compost, organic compost, and it's very rich, I do like to add fertilizer every year to each one of my tires. And because I have this on hand, the fish fertilizer, that's what I'm going to add. And I just mix that up in a 5-gallon bucket, and I'm going to add it to each bed and just mix that in real good. So one of the great things about having these recycled tires on your homestead for gardening is you can mix up the soil however you want. So today, because I'm doing kale and my Swiss chard, I refreshed my memory and did a little bit of research to make sure that I had well-draining, rich, composted soil. because that's what Swiss chard likes, that's what kale likes, and that's what spinach likes. So I just took my tires and I added a little bit of our human manure compost. I added a little bit of peat moss to the already rich soil and just lightened it up a little bit. The one thing you really don't have to be concerned about either is the tires do drain. Remember, you're going to be putting them on the ground, and you're going to have that big old hole cut in the bottom there. So I haven't had any problems with my tire garden draining. So don't be afraid of that. But it does give you a lot of freedom. If I wanted to do peas, and I've done peas, and I've done my celery, I've done carrots, I've done everything in these tires. You got that freedom to mix up that soil however you want individually. So it really gives you a little bit more control over your gardening. So I'm trying not going to bore you guys with planting the seeds itself, but here's my pre-soaked seeds, and I'm doing the kale, the dwarf blue, and it's a direct sow. And they say that you plant it about 6 inches to 12 inches apart and about 1/4 below the soil. So, these are really tiny. And a lot of people, they just drop them randomly. I have done sometimes one little seed at a time. You could do that and try to be kind of anal about it. That's fine. But I just kind of spread them out a little bit. And then what I end up doing is I put a real light dusting of like a real light peat moss over it to ensure that they get some cover. So next is my spinach seeds too. And what I'm going to do is sow the seeds about 1/2 inch deep and about 1 inch apart. And these are going to be a little bit easier. And what I do in the tire, because you don't really do rows, I just do kind of a circular type of seed planting method, and it really does work pretty darn good. And the other thing real quick about the spinach is you can see I've got a little bit of shade on this tire. Hopefully you can see it. And they don't like a lot of sun. So I put my kale in full sun, and my spinach is going to go in a little bit more of a shaded area. Remember that, because spinach can bolt. Okay, and the next bed that I'm going to do is my Swiss chard, and I hope I'm not boring you people with how to do these seeds, but if you're interested, the Swiss chard, 1/2 inch deep, and they like full sun, so this bed should get full sun, and and I'm just going to spread them out in the bed real easy. My onion chives, and I just lightly threw them in here. Oh, don't have a heart attack. I threw them in here, and I'm going to cover them with a little bit of real fine cover. That's it. Well, all the seeds are planted, and what I do now is I just cover them up with the plastic, and that's to keep the dog out. Just to get them heated up a little bit and get them started. Well, that was my exciting tire project for the day, so I'm glad you guys could come along, and hopefully you learned a little bit something, and hopefully it got you thinking about your off-grid homestead setup, and if recycling tires would be something that you'd be interested in using. I will do a disclaimer, because I know people are going to talk about the risk of using rubber tires. We did a lot of research, people, before we decided to use the tires, because we too were concerned about things leaching into our soil. But after much research, we found out that there are some metals in the tire, but they actually bond it into the rubber. There's a compound that binds it into that rubber, so they don't leach out. And in fact, if there's any trace minerals that come out, one of them is zinc. And zinc is very good for your soil and your vegetables. So we're not growing a third eye yet, or an extra ear. So far, so good. We like our tire garden. So think about that on your homestead or in your backyard when you're going to start maybe a new garden this year. All right, and hopefully next time when I do an update, we'll have some things growing.